What is going on, you guys? Today we have a interesting video titled The Complex Reason 100 Million Notes Exist. I'm not really sure what this video is about. I'm trying to wrap it around in my head. 100 million notes. I'm pretty sure that this is a pound next to it, so I'm curious. I love seeing your guys' money and your notes, your banknotes. I've seen quite a few different ones. A lot of fun. So smash the like button and let's just dive straight in.
This boring banknote may look like it's from the 18th century, and I wouldn't fault you for thinking that. But believe it or not only is it from the 21st century, but it's also perfectly legal tender. It's called Titan, and it is a 100% real 100 million pound banknote. Yep.
Shut the front door. A 100 million pound banknote? What?
That is a 1 followed by 8 zeros. Its cousin, the Giant, is a 1 million pound banknote and is also legitimate, issued by the Bank of England, just like any other pound sterling banknotes you're familiar with. You might think the number of zeros in these notes is ridiculous, but they aren't even the largest denominator of bills seen in a country. This is Zimbabwe's $100 trillion note, equivalent of a whopping 40 US cents, and here is a 100 trillion mark from war-torn Germany, equivalent to some 20 US dollars at that time. Hungary, Argentina, Yugoslavia, and Venezuela.
Wait, did he just say trillion? Because it says billion. I would imagine that's billion. Did I just miss
100 trillion mark from war-torn Germany,
100 trillion.
Equivalent to some 20 US dollars at that time. Hungary, Argentina.
I'm gonna guess it's billion. No?
Yugoslavia, and Venezuela have had their big notes at different points in history. These banknotes are a result of financial crisis and hyperinflation, and although these bills have absurd values, many are basically worthless, and those that do have value are worth nowhere near as much as the number on the paper. There are endless reasons why a country would be pushed into hyperinflation, and we won't discuss them here, but often when corrupt governments make bad financial decisions and banks irresponsibly start to print more money than is sensible, existing bills depreciate, sometimes until they lose all their worth.
Kind of like the American dollar right now. Literally just printing into oblivion. None of it makes any sense. Everyone's in debt. England's in debt. US is in debt. France is in debt. Who are we in debt to? Like the secret world cabal?
Notes are useless and almost nothing more than a fine piece of paper. So it might come as a surprise that the United Kingdom also has its own mega banknote. Britain hasn't had any serious inflation in ages. In general, pound sterling is a stable...
Okay, this came out in 2020. Yeah, October 2020. This was right after COVID was 2021, right? I think, yeah, 2021 or 2020. The entire area from 2020 to like 2023 is all blur for me.
Currency, meaning the 1 million pound Giant and the 100 million pound Titan, are literally worth what they say they are. While they're legal tender, the concept is bewildering. Who would need a 1 million pound banknote in a digitized world where most transactions happen over computers? And if that's true, then why do these notes even exist? Turns out that the answer is not quite what you'd expect. The Bank of England is the central bank of the United Kingdom, and it has a monopoly on the issue of notes for England and Wales. No other bank in England and Wales is allowed to print money, but this wasn't always the case. Until the middle of the 19th century, printing banknotes was considered the norm, as most of the...
I gotta say, it's so weird seeing it flipped like that. It looks so much different, doesn't it?
Middle of the 19th century, printing banknotes was considered the norm, as most of the UK's privately owned banks, big or small, issued their own bills of different colors, sizes, and featured personalities, depending on their local history. They were backed up by actual assets, usually gold, to maintain the confidence of the people in the notes. However, over time, banks weren't all doing it responsibly, and were not able to back up the notes with actual assets, especially in times when the country faced a shortage of gold. When a series of banks collapsed in England and their issued banknotes created chaos amongst people, the government realized it needed to restrict the note-issuing powers of...
I'm not kidding. It's hard for my brain to look at it, the country like this.
The banks. Through various banking acts along the way, and finally by the Bank Charter Act of 1844, Parliament gave exclusive note-issuing powers to the Central Bank of England. The English pound sterling issued by the bank holds the portrait of the British monarch and are the most popular pound sterling notes in the UK. The Queen has appeared so many times on so many banknotes in the last 85 years that you can actually make a progressive timeline of her life. Credit goes to Lebanon for this animation. In Scotland and Northern Ireland, the case was different. Their banks were relatively more responsible and were harmed much less in financial crisis over the years, so they argued there was no need for them to restrict their rights of printing their own money, which they believed was part of their cultural identity. This guy, named Walter Scott, a popular novelist and poet in Scotland, adopted the transparent persona of one of his characters and wrote letters and pamphlets to launch a caustic attack on the government proposal. Public meetings were held throughout the country to tell people that the Scottish banking system was doing just fine and the new banking measures would prove to be disastrous for them. It was unjust to punish the Scottish banks for the misdeeds of their English neighbors. As a result of the vigorous campaign, Parliament made exceptions for the region. Private banks in Scotland and Northern Ireland got to keep their note-issuing powers, and Walter Scott got featured on some of the Scottish notes. That sounds like a win, except now the government required these private banks to back up their paper money with an equivalent amount of Bank of England notes as security to avoid overprinting. For every pound in currency these banks produced, another pound was deposited into the Bank of England for safekeeping. This means that in the event of one of these Scottish or Northern Ireland banks collapsing and their pound notes falling out of circulation, the same value of money was secured in the Bank of England. Thus, holders of the uncommon pound notes had security that their bills were still worth their real value because the Bank of England was holding their money in English pound notes. Now, printing billions of pounds worth of notes and then holding this money as backup for centuries was a problem for the Bank of England, and in order to reduce the
Thus, they needed the 100 million note. All right, makes sense. That's crazy.
vault space used, they had a solution: compress an enormous value into just a few banknotes. These bills are the Titan and Giant, worth 100 million and 1 million pounds respectively. Unlike smaller values of notes, Titans and Giants are printed internally and locked in maximum security, which explains their primitive design.
Locked in maximum security, like, what would you even do if you got one of these? I'm pretty sure it would be extremely hard if these actually got stolen to ever use them. It's the same thing that we saw with the Louvre getting robbed, what was it, like a week or two ago? It's like, where do you sell that when you take it? Same thing with the banknote here. Like, if you got your hands on one of these, you wouldn't know what the hell to do with it.
Unlike the typical pound note or a dollar bill, Titans are printed on A4 paper and Giants are printed on A5 paper. Titans require signing by the chief cashier before they can become legal tender. Totaling over 8 billion pounds, more than 4,000 Titans and Giants have been printed by the Bank of England. Titans and Giants are not in circulation for obvious reasons. No cash machine will ever dispense a 1 million or 100 million pound note, unless in the case of hyperinflation like that of Germany after World War I. However complicated it may sound, this system has allowed Scotland and Northern Ireland to have their own banknotes in fantastic colors and designs, which represent their culture and
we gotta check these out. We gotta do like a full video on these.
Pay respect to their personalities. After various consolidation and rebranding, currently there are 3 banks in Scotland and 4 in Northern Ireland that issue their paper money. They are the only ones in the UK that do not feature the Queen. In 2015, Scotland's Clydesdale Bank was the first to issue a polymer note in Great Britain.
Good.
Ulster Bank from Northern
I like that.
Bank was the first
Look at that thing.
to issue a polymer note in Great Britain. Ulster Bank from Northern Ireland recently issued the first vertical banknote in the country. These attractive,
they have vertical
notes
too?
also act as a marketing tool for
Taken after Switzerland, right? The vertical banknotes. I've said it ad nauseum. They look so much better. And yeah, these ones are really cool.
banks. since the bearer is often reminded of these banks, and it's a major reason why banks don't want to give up their rights of printing money. All is not well, though. Scottish and Northern Irish banknotes have been subject to much controversy.
Ireland? Was that Ireland? I don't know exactly where this is. Y'all have Domino's?
Not well.
Domino's pizza? I had no idea.
Though. Scottish and Northern Irish banknotes have been subject to much controversy and confusion amongst English people. Like I said before, these bills are legit and authorized by the UK Parliament, which means they are accepted in all banks and post offices across the UK. They are widely used for day-to-day transactions of goods and services in their respective regions, and also in England and Wales to some extent. However, technically speaking, they're not considered legal tender according to the law. Legal tender is a technical term with little practical meaning and should not be confused with the legal or authorized nature of a banknote. Not being legal tender means that a person can refuse to take these notes to settle a debt issue, and he or she cannot be taken to courts. But as long as the buyers and sellers agree to use these banknotes for day-to-day transactions, there are no issues. Ignorance and misinformation have led many businesses in England and Wales to believe that Scottish banknotes are less valuable than English ones, so they look at them suspiciously. A survey conducted
These look amazing. These look so cool. I haven't seen any of these yet.
Amongst Scottish people in 2014 found that 70% of Scots have had their cash payments rejected in England. 50% of them were told that their money wasn't legal tender. Another survey conducted amongst English people in 2019 found that 76% were unable to identify where the Scottish currency was from, while 33% believed the notes to be counterfeit or fake. Many thought they looked like Monopoly money.
I kind of get it. I mean, that would be, here in the States, like someone trying to pay with a peso. If, that was also legal tender, it would be confusing, if you don't see it that often. So if someone's up in Scotland, goes down to England, trying to use the money down there, and they have never really seen it before, you're going to be like, yeah, I'm not taking this. I don't want to risk it, but yeah.
All of this causes much embarrassment and irritation to Scottish people when their paper money is rejected in England. Several MPs from Scotland have raised objections against this discrimination of Scottish paper money in the past decades. The proposed bill to legally compel businesses in England to accept Scottish banknotes was rejected in 2009 and again in 2019. Many argue that Scottish and Northern Irish banks should just use the same printed currency as England to avoid confusion. In the fight between banknotes, these regional banks seem to be losing the battle. Last year, one of the 4 banks in Northern Ireland announced that they would gradually stop issuing their own banknotes and would switch to dispensing Bank of England notes from their ATM network. Another Northern Irish bank has withdrawn their 50 and 100 pound notes and now issue a Bank of England 50 instead. If more banks follow this way, the giants and titans may not be needed to back up the value of uncommon notes anymore. For now, the titans and giants live on and lay claim to a great deal of fame. One £1 million note was sold for £69,000 at a specialist sale in London a decade ago, even though it is, in practical sense, just a piece of paper. Yeah. And that's the small but curious tale of Britain's £100 million banknotes.
Really, really good, you guys. I had no idea. This is why I love doing this channel. I just get to learn so much about Europe that it's the best. All right, if you guys enjoyed the video, smash the like button on the way out, subscribe, stick around. We got a video coming out every single day. Appreciate you watching. See you in the next one. Peace.